What's going on, guys? It's Nick here, back with another video. Todd Gurley versus Dalvin Cook, another player breakdown for you guys. This one dealing with two second-round running backs that come with their own injury concerns. But before we start, let's do the stat of the day. Today's stat: among running backs with at least 100 carries last season, who had the highest yards per carry from the shotgun? Alright, let's start this breakdown with Dalvin Cook first. And the number one complaint people have with Dalvin Cook is injury. So that's the first thing we need to go over. In 2014, he tore his shoulder falling on stairs in the weight room. 2016, re-injures the shoulder in practice. 2017, tears his ACL. The recovery went fine from that, but he did still miss most of the season. And then last season, he missed a game with a pulled hamstring, then another 4 after re-injuring the hamstring. Hamstring and ACL injuries are ones that do concern me, but for different reasons. The ACL concerns me the following season, since it takes a while to recover, and while people will gain trust back in the knee, they will be better from it, it just takes a while to recover from the injury, and we don't know exactly what a player is going to look like when they come back. Well, he's now 2 seasons removed from it, so that's no longer a concern. Hamstrings concern me in that season because it can take a while to be 100% recovered from a hamstring. You know, you can get back to like 85, 90, 95%, but it takes a while to be 100% over a hamstring, so players are oftentimes at elevated risk when they return, which is what we saw end up happening with Dalvin Cook. Comes back from the hamstring injury, re-injures it. However, unless he suffers another separate hamstring injury in camp, that's in the past as well, and it's not something that we should be concerned with. Cook doesn't have a problem with foot or ankle injuries. His hamstring injury, like I just said, was in the past, and it was his first, so I'm not overly concerned with that. And I don't expect him to be elevated risk going forward. And an ACL tear can happen to anyone, so I really don't expect him to be at that much elevated risk going forward. He's a player that has suffered injuries, so he's an elevated risk from an average player, but these injuries aren't ones I expect him to re-injure. They would be completely separate injuries that he could suffer going forward. Let's talk about his opportunity next, and there are very few running backs set up to see the same amount of volume as Dalvin Cook. Dalvin Cook saw a larger snap and opportunity share than Melvin Gordon last season, and he was able to command 40 receptions, even though he was only healthy enough to play over 30 snaps in 9 games. The Vikings let Latavius Murray walk in free agency, and then they drafted Alexander Madison in the 3rd round. The thing is, Madison isn't all that good, and unless Cook goes down with another injury, there's a 0% chance Madison challenges him for any sort of real workload. He'll get touches, when they want to rest Cook, but that's it. This is Cook's backfield, and he's set up to see a boatload of touches. The Vikings did not have a good offensive line last season, but they did address that in the draft. They spent a 1st-round pick on Garrett Bradbury. That's not going to fix their issues by any means, but it's a step at least in the right direction. They will be better. They also brought in Gary Kubiak as their offensive coordinator, and Player Profiler had an interesting stat about Kubiak. In 22 seasons as either the offensive coordinator or the head coach, Kubiak's lead back has averaged a little over 1,100 yards, 32 receptions, so another 250 receiving yards, and 10.5 touchdowns. That's good for 233 fantasy points and would have gotten you between running back 3 and 6 over the last 5 years. My current projection on Dalvin Cook is a little over 1,100 rushing yards and a little over 6 rushing touchdowns, plus 57 receptions, almost 500 receiving yards, and a little under 3 receiving touchdowns. That's my 10th highest projection, and the 8.9 total touchdown projection is easily attainable for Cook. If you told me he's going to be out there healthy for 16 weeks, I expect him to finish more in that 10 to 12 touchdown range. So he definitely has one of those projections I could see increasing as we approach week 1. And if you want to see my latest projection on Cook, along with all other players, my tiered rankings, and player notes, then make sure to check out our draft package at our website, thefantasyfootballadvice.com. So that's enough for Cook. We're going to go back to him at the end when we compare the two of them. But let's move on to Todd Gurley. And the risk with Todd Gurley is also obvious. Will the knees hold up? Todd Gurley tore his ACL in college, and we know that people that tear their ACL are at greater risk to develop arthritis in the knee. The good news for Gurley is that we know what the problem is, and so does the team. Remember last season in the playoffs, we knew he was having, knee issues, but we had no real idea what the problem was. Well, now we do know, and while it's going to impact him moving forward, it is something that he can play through. The Rams have also had an offseason to game plan how they want to construct their offense with this news. They matched the Lions' offer, unrestricted free agent Malcolm Brown, then they drafted Darrell Henderson in the 3rd round. They've prepared their offense to withstand a limited Todd Gurley. Not no Todd Gurley. They don't think he's gone. They've just put their offense together to say, hey, if he's limited, we can still survive. We can still be an elite offense. Because that's the best move for the organization. Remember how much they paid Todd Gurley. They paid him a boatload of money, so they want him being productive and producing for them as long as possible. Gurley has averaged a little over 18 carries and 4 receptions per game over the last 2 seasons. That's not something we can expect going forward, those 22 touches a game. They want him again to stay healthy for the remainder of his contract, so it's much more likely to finishes around 13 to 14 carries and 2 to 3 receptions per game. Now that might sound scary, but this isn't Washington. Remember that. This is not Washington. This is the Rams. So if he can convert those 15 to 17 touches into 85 to 95 yards a game, then he's still going to be elite because he's still going to score touchdowns. And as long as the pain in the knee isn't too bad, he should actually be more efficient on limited touches. If you want an example of this, look at Alvin Kamara. Alvin Kamara has finished as running back 3 and 4 over the past 2 seasons. His opportunity in those years, 2017, 7.5 carries and 5 receptions per game, running back 3. 2018, 13 carries, 5.4 receptions per game, running back 4. Alvin Kamara finished as the running back 3 on 12.5 touches per game and the running back 4 on 18.4 touches per game. Running backs in elite offenses don't need a boatload of touches to crush in fantasy. It's obviously better. Like if you told me he was getting 25 touches a game, it's obviously a good thing, but it's not necessary. So even if they dial back Gurley to what I expect in that like 13-14 carry range, 2 to 3 receptions per game, he can still finish as a running back 1. But notice how I said can there. Gurley can finish as a running back 1 on limited touches, but Dalvin Cook is going to finish as a running back 1 if he stays healthy. My median projection for Gurley still gives him 10.5 touchdowns, around 1,300 total yards, and comes out to my 15th highest projection among running backs. And it still falls 33 points lower than Dalvin Cook. So Cook wins on projection. Gurley, of course, you have to give him the edge on upside because we've seen him dominate this league in the past 2 seasons. But that upside comes with an extremely low likelihood and a massive amount of risk. And since I always advocate for staying away from all avoidable risk in the first 4 rounds, I have to pick Cook ahead of Gurley. Dalvin Cook has no one challenging him for touches. The Vikings offense is likely to take a step forward in their second season with Cousins. They've brought in a new offensive coordinator that's had a lot of success with running backs, and he comes with far less risk than Gurley. I've projected Gurley in that 15 to 17 touches per game range, but he won't be above 20. This isn't a situation where, that's the median outcome and it's even on both sides of the curve. It's not even on both sides of the curve. He's not getting above 20 touches, and it's entirely possible he ends up closer to 13 to 15. The difference in volume and risk is just too much that I can't justify drafting Todd Gurley ahead of Dalvin Cook. Because not only will Gurley need to be efficient with these touches, but I think he can be, he'll also need to score a boatload of touchdowns, which I do think can happen. So Gurley's not like the worst pick in the world because you're getting, of course, a discount on what you used to be getting. But he's not the same player he used to be. He's not going to get the same volume. And when you look at this Vikings offense, there's no one challenging Dalvin Cook for volume. He's the goal line back. He's the third down back. He's only coming off the field if he is hurt or tired. That's someone that I want to target in the second round. So that's the end of this breakdown. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Who would you take if you had that mid-second round pick where they're both kind of going? Would you take Dalvin Cook or Todd Gurley? And of course, put your answer for the stat of the day. But that's the end of this video. I hope you guys did enjoy. If you did, how about hitting that like button? If you're new here, how about subscribing to the channel? And thanks for watching.